There is an uncomfortable truth that few people are willing to accept, yet it defines real growth and inner power far more than any talent or strategy. Victories are not meant to be counted, even when they hurt in silence, even when no one applauds them, even when deep inside you wish someone would notice. True progress does not need witnesses because it is born the moment you choose to work while others talk, to build while others boast, and to move forward while others seek approval. We live in an era where many confuse progress with visibility, where it seems that if you do not post it, it does not exist. But that constant need to display every achievement does not come from certainty. It comes from doubt, from searching outside for a validation that can only be built within. Carl Jung understood that the ego seeks recognition, while the self seeks integration. Those who know who they are do not need to announce it. They demonstrate it through consistency, through results, and through silence. Real discipline is discreet. True focus makes no noise. The greatest transformations occur far from applause, in the invisible routine, on the days when no one asks how you are doing, and yet you continue moving forward. That is where character is forged. That is where the difference appears between those who want to seem successful and those who truly will be. Many people weaken, not because they lack ability, but because of the urgency to be recognized before they are ready. They celebrate too early, speak too early, expose themselves too early, and by doing so, they lose energy, focus, and direction. Because every time you tell a victory, part of the motivation dissolves. The psyche confuses recognition with completion, and the impulse fades. From a young age, we were taught that sharing is good, that showing what we do is confidence, that those who do not boast are insecure. But life teaches the opposite. Those who build something solid learn to work in silence, to let results speak, to understand that real abundance arrives when you no longer depend on others to validate it. Carl Jung would say, this is the moment when the ego steps aside and the self begins to lead. I want you to do something right now. Write in the comments this sentence with total conviction. Our victories are built in silence. Write it because declaring an identity is the first step toward sustaining it. This message is not made to motivate you superficially. It is designed to reorder you internally, to help you understand why speaking less about your plans makes you stronger. Why does executing without announcing make you more focused, more grounded, and more free? Here, you will discover how strategic silence protects your energy, strengthens your character, and attracts opportunities that noise can never sustain. Prepare yourself, because this is not a comfortable reflection. It is a call to maturity, to stop chasing quick applause and start building lasting results. When you understand that victories are not counted, you stop competing for attention and begin competing with yourself. You recover focus, you recover calm, you recover dignity, because those who truly win do not need to say it. It shows in the way they walk, the way they decide, the way they live. There is a profound difference between advancing and appearing to advance, between building and announcing, between truly winning and seeking confirmation from others. That difference defines the destiny of many people without them noticing it. Because while some are busy counting every small achievement, others are too focused, building something that requires no explanation. Real victories make no noise. They are felt. They are sustained. They accumulate in silence. The problem is not celebrating. The problem is depending on celebration. When you start counting every step, every advance, every effort, you hand your energy over to external reaction. You wait for approval. You wait for recognition. You wait for someone to confirm that you are on the right path. And in that instant, even if it does not seem like it, you lose the power of the inner impulse that led you to begin. The focus shifts from the process to the applause. Lasting success is built when no one is watching, in daily discipline that is never posted, in difficult decisions that receive no likes, in sacrifices that generate no immediate admiration. That is where character is formed. That is where the difference appears between those who need to be seen and those who know who they are. Because those who know who they are feel no rush to prove it. Many people sabotage their own progress for one simple reason. They speak too soon. They announce plans that are not yet mature. They share victories that are not yet consolidated. And by doing so, they disperse their energy. The mind receives the sensation of achievement before it is completed, and the urgency to continue dissolves. What is lost is not motivation, but creative tension, that inner pressure that pushes you to finish what you started. Discreet dedication is not shyness or fear, it is intelligence. It is understanding that noise attracts unnecessary attention, irrelevant opinions, and external expectations you never asked for. It is knowing that every extra word is a leak of energy, that every unnecessary explanation weakens your focus. Carl Jung taught that true individuation requires silence, patience, and inner work. When you stop announcing who you are becoming and commit to becoming it, your power consolidates. Victories do not need witnesses. They need depth. And those who understand this no longer chase recognition because they have learned to recognize themselves. Those who move forward in silence protect their vision from interference. Here, an uncomfortable truth appears. Many people want others to see them succeed more than they truly want to succeed. And it shows. It shows in the need to tell, to display, to justify. It shows in the anxiety to be recognized before being ready. But life does not reward those who speak best about their victories. It rewards those who show up every day and execute, even when no one congratulates them. When you stop talking about your progress, something powerful happens. Your energy concentrates. Your mind becomes clearer. Your commitment deepens. You no longer work to impress. You work to build. And that difference changes everything. Because silent progress is not only more solid, it is more dangerous. No one sees it coming. No one sabotages it. No one contaminates it. This message is not about hiding. It is about strengthening yourself, about understanding that strategic silence does not take value away from you. It gives it back. Victories that are not spoken accumulate like an inner force that sooner or later becomes visible, not because you announce it, but because it can no longer remain hidden. Here the real path begins, not the one of quick applause, but that of real construction. Because when you learn to move forward without telling, you begin to win without depending. And that is the first level of success that few reach, but that changes everything. Many people do not talk about their victories out of conscious pride. They talk about them out of silent insecurity. They do not do it to boast. They do it to feel confirmed, to hear outside what they have not yet consolidated inside. And this is a delicate point, because the ego rarely presents itself as arrogance. Most of the time, it appears as enthusiasm, as the desire to share, as the need to be understood. But stop for a moment and observe yourself honestly. What do you feel when no one reacts to what you share? What happens inside when the messages, praise, or questions do not arrive? If motivation drops, if frustration or doubt appears, then you were not sharing, you were seeking emotional support. And when that support comes from outside, progress becomes fragile. The mind is clear about this. Every time you talk about a goal or an early victory and receive approval, a sense of anticipated reward is released. Your psyche interprets that you have advanced more than you actually have, and that small inner deception reduces the pressure to keep executing. Not because you are weak, but because your system already received part of the reward before finishing the race. Here, a dangerous pattern is born. You speak, you are validated, you relax, you speak again, reactions return, and once more, you lower your guard. Meanwhile, real action stagnates, progress becomes intermittent, and without realizing it, you become someone who communicates intentions well, but executes halfway. The gap between what you say and what you do begins to grow. Ask yourself an uncomfortable question and answer it with total honesty. What victory are you still talking about to feel recognized instead of continuing to work in silence until it is truly consolidated? Write it, not to expose yourself, but to see yourself clearly, because awareness is the first step to correcting direction. Those who depend on external validation become slaves to their environment. They adjust their rhythm to the reactions of others, speed up when applauded, and slow down when ignored. Their energy stops being stable. But those who work in silence build an inner source of motivation. They move forward, whether there is applause or not. And that makes them consistent, predictable, and dangerous to mediocrity. This is not about isolating yourself or hiding your life. It is about understanding the right moment. There are processes that need silence to grow. There are goals that wither when exposed too early. A seed is not dug up every day to see if it has grown. It is watered, protected, and left alone. When you begin to notice why you share what you share, you regain control. You no longer share out of anxiety. You share by choice. You no longer seek to be held up. You hold yourself. And that difference, although invisible at first, redefines your relationship with success, because true progress does not need constant spectators. It needs commitment. And that commitment strengthens when you learn to keep your victories, to let them mature, and to allow them to speak for themselves when they are ready. When you decide to stop talking about your victories, you do not just save words, you recover focus. Something orders itself inside you. The mind stops dispersing itself in others' reactions and returns to its main function: to execute. Silence is not absence, it is direction. It is the capacity to place all your energy into one thing, without dividing it among opinions, expectations, and external judgments. Every time you explain your process, you fragment it. You force yourself to translate something that is still under construction, to justify decisions that do not yet show results, to defend paths others do not understand because they are not walking with you. And in that effort, clarity is lost. Strategic silence frees you from that burden. It allows you to move forward without asking permission and without carrying doubts that do not belong to you. Those who achieve great things are not necessarily the most brilliant. They are the most focused. As Carl Jung taught, they protect their inner image as something fragile and valuable. They understand that not everyone needs to know what they are working on, that not every opinion contributes, that not every question deserves an answer, that selectivity is not arrogance, it is emotional intelligence applied to performance. When you work in silence, your execution becomes deeper. You do not jump from idea to idea seeking validation. You do not adjust your direction every time someone disagrees. You follow a plan. You correct in private. You learn without exposing yourself. You fail without justifying yourself. That intimate space between you and your work is where real progress occurs. There is a special energy in doing without announcing, a sense of inner power that does not depend on external reaction. You begin to enjoy the process for what it is, not for how it looks. You become less reactive and more precise, less anxious and more consistent. And that consistency accumulated over time is what produces results that do not need explanation. Many people believe silence makes them invisible. In reality, it prepares them, strengthens them, makes them unpredictable. Because when you do not announce your moves, no one interferes, no one competes, no one sabotages. You move forward without resistance, and when the result appears, it needs no introduction. It imposes itself. Silence also filters relationships. You stop attracting the curious and begin attracting respect. Those who approach do so because of what you do, not because of what you say you will do. That difference changes the quality of your environment. Less noise, less distraction, more clarity, more mental space. Space for what truly matters. Working in silence does not mean hiding. It means choosing the right moment to reveal. It means understanding, as Carl Jung taught, that there is a season for planting and a season for harvesting, and confusing the two ruins both. Patient people are not in a rush to show unripe fruits. They trust the process because they are committed to the outcome. When you adopt this way of moving through life, everything begins to feel more grounded. Your decisions carry more weight, your actions speak louder, and you speak less, but with more precision, because you no longer need to convince anyone that you are progressing. You know it, you feel it, and that is enough. This is how real progress is built, through focus, silence, and execution. Everything else is noise. When you stop counting your victories, you begin to build something far more valuable than external admiration, inner respect. Because every time you resist the urge to speak too soon, you demonstrate self-mastery. And self-mastery is the foundation of all genuine strength. It is not visible, it is not advertised, but it is felt in every decision you make. Carl Jung emphasized that identity is not shaped by what we say, but by what we are capable of holding in silence. When you act without announcing, the mind stops splitting itself between doing and displaying. You no longer need to be understood by everyone. It is enough to be coherent with yourself. That coherence generates emotional stability. You stop depending on the mood of your environment to feel at peace with your path. Many people live emotionally exposed. Every opinion moves them. Every reaction affects them. Every external silence unsettles them. But when you choose discretion, you regain control. Your inner state no longer fluctuates according to external validation. You become more solid, more stable, harder to disturb, and that stability becomes a powerful advantage in a noisy world. Silence also cleans the ego. It forces you to ask why you do what you do. If no one were to applaud, would you continue? If no one recognized you, Would you maintain discipline? When the answer is yes, you cross an important threshold because your motivation becomes authentic. It no longer depends on being seen. It depends on being faithful to your process. Internally, something deep begins to happen. You start to trust yourself more. You no longer need constant confirmation to know you are on the right path. Your judgment sharpens. Your intuition strengthens. And that quiet confidence reflects in your presence. You speak less, but with greater impact. You decide with more calm. You react less and act more. Self-respect grows when you do what is right, even when no one is watching, when you keep training without posting it, when you keep learning without being noticed, when you keep moving forward without being celebrated. It is in those moments that you become someone reliable to yourself, and people who trust themselves do not need to prove anything. Letting results speak for you also reshapes your relationship with time. You are no longer in a hurry. You understand that what is solid takes time, that what is true matures slowly, that what endures is not built in short attention cycles. This patience is not passivity, it is strategy. It is knowing how to wait while continuing to execute. When results finally arrive, they do not surprise you. You expected them not because you announced them, but because you worked for them. And when others notice, you do not need to explain. They stand there, firm, clear, unquestionable. That kind of achievement does not generate superficial envy. It generates deep respect. Quietly and without display, you build a version of yourself that is stronger, more centered, and more free. A version that does not depend on the gaze of others to feel valid. And that inner freedom is one of the greatest victories a human being can reach, even though it is rarely spoken about. Understanding that victories are not announced is only the beginning. Real change happens when this understanding enters daily life, when you decide to act differently even in small details. Because it is not only major achievements that are exposed too early, it is also plans, intentions, and fragile processes that need silence the most in order to grow. Keeping your plans private is not a lack of ambition, it is protection. Every time you speak about something that does not yet exist, you expose it to opinions, comparisons, and doubts that add nothing. Not everyone thinks like you. Not everyone wants to see you grow. Not everyone knows how to hold a vision with care. Silence allows you to work without interference, without having to defend something that is still under construction. Invisible consistency is one of the purest forms of discipline. It is showing up every day, doing what is required, improving a little, even when no one notices, even when there is no immediate reward, even when progress feels slow. That kind of work builds character. It trains you not to depend on external stimulation. You become more resistant to frustration and boredom, two of the greatest enemies of real success. Choosing when to speak and when to remain silent is a skill refined through awareness. It is not about closing yourself off. It is about being selective. There are moments to share results and moments to protect processes. There are people who deserve to know what you are working on, and others who only need to see the final outcome. When you mix those levels, clarity and energy are lost. Many people feel anxious when they do not talk about what they are doing. They feel invisible, left behind, unnoticed. But that anxiety is part of the adjustment. It is the mind detoxing from the fast dopamine of recognition. If you move through that phase without giving in, something more solid emerges, a motivation that does not depend on being observed. Working in silence also teaches you to measure progress differently. You no longer measure it by external reactions. You measure it by internal consistency, by how much you advanced compared to yesterday, by how often you kept your word to yourself, by the quality of your decisions when no one was pressuring you. We are, in a profound sense, condemned to freedom, a reality Carl Jung would urge us not to escape from, but to understand. Freedom is not comforting, nor is it gentle. It demands responsibility, awareness, and the courage to face oneself without excuses. Yet, it is precisely this discomfort that opens the door to a life with meaning. The real dilemma is not whether we are free, but how we choose to live that freedom in a world that constantly pushes us to adopt identities, ambitions, and rhythms that are not truly ours. The answer is never simple, but it is always clear once it is felt internally. When something shifts inside you, when your inner measure changes, your entire relationship with success transforms as well. When silence becomes a deliberate practice rather than an absence, your movements begin to carry intention. You stop dispersing your energy in unnecessary explanations and comparisons. You no longer measure yourself against others because you are finally measuring yourself against your own standards. Patience naturally emerges, and this patience does not slow you down. It refines you. It sharpens your perception and allows you to notice possibilities that were always present but invisible while you were busy justifying yourself. From a Jungian lens, this process reflects the withdrawal of psychic energy from the persona, the social mask, and its return to the inner center, the place where genuine power and direction are formed. This inward movement does not erase you from the world. It anchors you within it. You do not disappear. You become grounded. And when you eventually speak, your words are no longer fueled by anticipation or desire for approval. They arise from experience, from outcomes that have already been tested and lived. That distinction is unmistakable. People listen differently when someone speaks sparingly, yet when they do, they speak from substance rather than aspiration. Living this way requires daily commitment. It is a choice that must be renewed again and again, often in opposition to a culture that rewards noise, urgency, and constant display. Choosing restraint in such a world is not easy, but it yields rewards that run deep. Clarity begins to replace confusion. Focus replaces scattered effort. An inner sense of control develops, one that few people ever truly cultivate. Once you taste that internal stability, you no longer exchange it for fleeting validation. Over time, as you hold to this principle without breaking it, certain effects begin to unfold naturally. They cannot be forced, accelerated, or demanded. And precisely because they arrive slowly, they endure. When disciplined silence is paired with consistent action, something powerful takes shape, a reputation that does not rely on words. This reputation moves quietly, but it travels far. The most meaningful opportunities rarely come from self-promotion. They emerge from observation. Someone notices how you work when no one is applauding, how you respond under pressure, how you produce results without broadcasting them. And trust forms. Those who do not need to announce their victories are often the ones capable of sustaining them. Trust is not built through volume, but through coherence. When your actions speak on your behalf, the respect you attract is of a different kind. It is not shallow admiration, it is credibility. In a world overwhelmed by constant discourse, sobriety becomes magnetic, not because you are trying to draw attention, but because you are no longer chasing it. True abundance responds to the same principle. It does not gravitate toward those who boast, but toward those who prepare. It does not reward shortcuts, but mastery of process. Silence creates space to build real value rather than merely appearing valuable. Carl Jung distinguished this clearly as the difference between ego inflation and the integration of the self. And real value, sooner or later, finds its reward. Sometimes that reward arrives as financial stability, sometimes as freedom of time, sometimes as peace of mind, sometimes as the quiet satisfaction of autonomy. But it always arrives in a form that genuinely matters. Along the way, another quality develops: strategic humility. This is not the kind of humility that diminishes or denies worth, but the humility of someone who knows their value and therefore does not need to announce it. This humility keeps you learning. It keeps you attentive and protects you from stagnation. When you are no longer dependent on applause, growth continues even after success. You become less vulnerable to envy, comparison, and emotional exhaustion. By not exposing every step of your process, you also shield yourself from constant judgment. Your mind grows lighter, your thoughts clearer, your rest deeper. Energy that once leaked into maintaining an image is redirected toward sustaining results. Over time, this way of living builds something rare: inner stability. External conditions may shift, crises may arise, noise may intensify, but you remain oriented. You know how to move forward without recognition, how to work without immediate reward, how to stay committed to the process. This knowledge becomes an advantage that cannot be taken from you. When you eventually choose to share your insights, you do not do so to seek validation. You do it to contribute, to teach, to inspire from lived experience rather than intention. And this difference is felt immediately. People listen differently to those who have walked their path quietly. This is a form of success that does not depend on spectacle, yet leaves a lasting imprint. It does not require defense because it is supported by facts. It does not collapse easily because it was built patiently. Looking back, you begin to see that every time you chose silence over noise, you were planting something far more significant than it appeared at the time. Eventually, a moment of absolute clarity arrives. You realize that you no longer need to prove anything, not because ambition has vanished, but because inner growth has reached a point where external validation no longer governs you. This is the real transformation. It may not be visible from the outside, but it reorganizes everything within. Those who stop counting their victories begin to live from identity rather than ego, a distinction Jung emphasized repeatedly. You stop acting to impress and start acting to build. You stop moving for applause and begin moving for purpose. When people operate from this inner position, their presence changes, their energy carries weight, their decisions become steadier, their path, while still challenging, becomes clearer. At this stage, silence ceases to be a tactic and becomes a state of being. You are not quiet to hide. You are quiet because there is nothing you need to prove. Not because you lack achievements, but because you understand that what matters most is never shouted. Discipline, consistency, vision, and mental strength are not displayed. They are embodied. This is the posture of someone who can remain centered amid chaos, who can succeed without arrogance, who can face loss without collapse. Their worth does not fluctuate with daily outcomes because it is rooted in character built over years. And that character cannot be purchased, imitated, or improvised. When you adopt this mindset, your relationship with success is permanently altered. You stop seeing success as something to announce and begin seeing it as something to maintain. You understand that a victory that needs constant explanation is fragile, while a quiet victory supported by solid habits is unstoppable. No one can take it from you because no one gave it to you. Your legacy also shifts. Those who boast teach others to chase approval. Those who work in silence teach trust in process, respect for time, and honor for work done well. These lessons do not require noise to endure. They remain, they are transmitted, and they influence deeply. Perhaps no one witnesses your early mornings. Perhaps no one applauds your sacrifices. Perhaps no one understands why you continue without announcing your progress. And that is acceptable because you are not building for a moment, but for a lifetime. You are building stability, freedom, and the quiet peace that comes from knowing you acted with integrity even when no one was watching. This is the final truth. The victories that are never told are often the ones that carry the greatest weight. They reshape you internally, make you stronger, clearer, and more whole. They require no audience because their impact is felt daily in how you think, choose, and move through the world. If today you decide to stop announcing and start consolidating, you lose nothing. On the contrary, you regain focus, power, and self-respect. And that self-respect, once earned, outweighs any fleeting applause. Walk forward, work steadily, and grow in silence if needed. Let the world wonder how you did it. When the right moment comes, you will not need to explain anything. Your life will speak on your behalf.